At Speedway, we've always been here to get you what you need when you need it. We're committed to keeping our stores open, clean, and safe, so you can stay fueled and refreshed all summer long. We've got cold drinks for hot days and frozen drinks for even hotter ones, plus energy boosts, quick bites, and pick-me-ups. We're always on your way, and we're always here for you. So no matter what you need, when you stop by, we'll be ready. Now, any Speedy Freeze up to mighty size is just 99 cents.
Welcome to Audiogyan with Kedar Nimkar, a podcast that documents insightful conversations with Indian designers, artists, musicians, writers, thinkers, and creatives of all types. Catch us on iTunes or visit audiogyan.com for more Gyan sessions. Here's your host, Kedar Nimkar.
Today I have Quasar, Thakore, Padamsee and Toral Shah with us on Audiogyan. These guys need no introduction for people who belong to the world of theatre and arts, but just a formality. Quasar, apart from being an accomplished actor, writer, director and producer, is also the founder of Thespo Theatre Festival, which completed 20 years last December. Toral is all about Backstage, the backbone of QTP Productions. She started working full-time with QTP since 2001. She worked in the capacity of administrator, in-house graphic designer, sound, lights operator, production manager, stage manager. And since 1999 onwards, she has been a festival coordinator and art director. Although there are numerous things to be discussed about theatre and art in general with Quasar and Toral, this Audiogyan tries to document an episode focusing on Thespo as a case study and its last 20 years, and also some bits about youth theatre in Mumbai and India. So thank you guys for giving your time, and it's a real honor to have you on Audiogyan.
Thank you, Kedar. It is always a wonderful morning, well spent when you're sitting and talking about theatre with other theatre lovers. So good to be here.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. I've come up with some questions, and let's see how we take this forward. But to begin with, if you can set some context. Obviously, a lot of people know about Thespo, but for new listeners, maybe few select Audiogyan listeners, it would be something new. So if you can just set the background, what is Thespo, how did it start, or maybe just focus on why did you guys think of making it?
Thespo basically started because at the time, long time ago, when we were young, naive and arrogant, we felt there was a gap. What was happening was, at the school level, you're quite well supported with regards to art and activities that are extracurricular. When you get to the college level, unless you're doing competitive level stuff, you're kind of left to your own devices. You've got to figure it out.
Competitive as in still those are festivals only, right?
Yes, but they're all in this. They're all 15-minute or 20-minute. They're all contingent led kind of things, and so I think Thespo emerged because if I was a young person and I wanted to just engage with the theatre in a serious way, and I don't mean by serious content, I just mean by in a meaningful way. There was no way I could do it. There was no place I could. It's not a subject that you could learn, right? It was all happening in the corridors or the alleyways of colleges, but all very, very piecemeal. So there was a real need for a place where people could come to and try and just engage with the theatre. And it actually started at a really weird moment. There was a play called Sadhya that was actually performing at Malhar, which is the St. Xavier's College annual festival. And I had a play in the same festival and and we were all sitting there watching it, right? And there must have been 20 people in the auditorium. In the whole St. Xavier's Hall, there were 20 people. Now, one of the things about the theatre in any contingent college festival you go to, it is really the last thing you look at in your general cultural fests scenario. Fashion show and dance are always the big ones, or music or whatever. So whatever they have set up, whatever their lights are, you have to use something that they have given. There was no care given to the theatre, and it was a very frustrating day that day for us. Anyway, so we were all sitting in this, and the curtain opened, And the play began. This is a play called Sadhya. And I turned to my team and I went, guys, we can go home. Like, they've got. Now, the amazing thing about Sadhya was it was good, but not just by student standards. It was good by any standard. And whatever it was, me and a whole bunch of us, we used to watch a lot of theatre because that's the only way we could engage and learn stuff. And we were looking at this play going, man, it's way better than some of the stuff that we've been watching on the so-called professional stage. And we looked around the room, right? And there were the 20 of us in the auditorium, all of us contingent participants. There was the sound guy who'd fallen asleep on the console. And there was a light guy who was digging his nose, right? And I was going, this is a really depressing place to play, to do this play of this quality, right? Of this quality. So, a friend of mine, Christopher, and me, we went off and we met a few days later and we both had the same idea. What if we can create a place where work like this gets showcased? Good work done by young people without the barrier that, acha, ye bacche hain. You give them as good kind of facilities and stuff as anyone else and see. And that's kind of the nascent way of where it started. I mean, I keep teasing Shiti Zog, who's the actress in Sadhya, and I think she was 15 or 16 at the time, and saying, man, she's the reason why Thespo happened. We saw talent like that and we went, oh my God, this has to be seen by other people. And Christopher and I then met and we both came up with an idea for a festival. He had planned it at YB Chavan, I had planned it at Sophia's. We'd done full costing and it was not decided. We literally met 2 days later and we both had these ideas. And when two people have the same idea, you get to feel that, yeah, this is something that should be executed and done. And literally that's how Thespo was born. We then took the idea, at that time it was just a festival or whatever, and we took it to Theatre Group Bombay, who are a very, very senior theatre group in Bombay. In India, they started in the 1940s, so they've been like, wow. And they were very active 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. 90s, they'd started getting a little less active because they were all 70 years old. And I'd heard that they were looking for young people and a project involving young people. So we went and just pitched the idea to them and they were like, yeah, we want to get behind it. We want to support it because we think there is merit in it. And I mean, this was already September. So September we put the call out. We didn't have a name for what we were doing. I think we just called it the Theatre Group Festival or Theatre Group Youth Festival at that time. And then there was a whole brainstorming happened and a guy called Ashish Bisundayal came up with the name Thespo. And then that's what happened. So it started very much as a showcase or a platform for young people to show their work. When we did the first year, we had no idea that we'd still be doing it, 20 years later. Like we thought, okay, we'll do it and we'll see. But the first one went well. Then we started looking at what are the other gaps, what are the things that need development among young theatre people. And bit by bit, it's grown. So now it's no longer just a festival. The festival is one of the things that Thespo does. Showcasing is only one aspect of it. But we do stuff throughout the year. Or rather, it does stuff throughout the year. And it really has become a way bigger beast than we ever imagined. And if you told us then that this is where we're going, we probably would have said, yeah, forget it. We're not getting involved. And it has now kind of national presence where a lot of young people across the country are getting involved. And by young people, we mean 15 to 25 is what our target age group is. Usually it's 18 to 23, within that. But it allows people to engage with the theatre well into your, graduation, your masters, and into maybe your first job, in quotes, unquote. So there's still that aspect of it. So even if you don't become a theatre maker, the theatre is part of your life, and that's how you build an audience as well, right? Like if I'm interested in the theatre, even if I'm working in a bank or whatever, I will go and watch stuff. So that's become a larger kind of thing.
Yeah, interesting. But is there any particular reason for 25 and not 30?
So, if we reverse engineer the argument, because we were trying to look at people from in college and stuff, you can say, if you get to 30, then the 18-year-old gets left behind. right? Your
Delta,
early end goal.
yeah.
But the other thing is, for some reason, 25 seemed to be a
Nice.
number that got bandied about at us a lot. You know, oh, you're a young troop, you're not even 25. What do you know about the world? What do you this kind of thing at that time got tossed at us quite a bit. So I think it actually, the number got locked mainly, I think, out of just stubbornness and rebellion. We were heat.
I guess, yeah.
We're like, oh, you think we're not under 25? No, if you're over 25, get out. We don't want you. It suddenly became, I think, that. I mean, at that time, we were only 20, 21, putting it together. We were very arrogant to be able to go and tell other people of our own age group about what is good theatre and what, what theatre. If I think back right now, it's horrible times. But
the NID also has 25. That's why I was just wondering.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it would have been an arbitrary number, whatever number we pick.
Correct.
And I think it's important to remember we are talking about 1999. The scene is completely different when we came up with this idea. And that time there were way fewer opportunities in the creative and performing arts at that time. So what would normally happen is that you would do your graduation, and if you still wanted to pursue your interests, you would do 2 years of masters, and then you would get the real job, and then you would have a career and you would have to make money. So at that time, 25 also felt like a lot, because by 22 you finish your masters, by 22, 23. So we were like, okay, even after that, if there's somebody who wants to still, try and figure out what theatre means to them, or try their hand at doing theatre. So when you're 20, 25, felt like a number quite up there. It's another thing to then be 30 and 35 and 40 years old and say, could this be for somebody up to 30? But over the years, now we have seen that 18 and 19 and 20-year-olds are accomplishing so much already. Like 30 wouldn't make sense. I think the general age group, like Quasar mentioned, is now more in the 18 to 23 age group. Like that's where the most exciting stuff, the most prolific stuff is happening in that age group. And like he mentioned, I mean, if you could cast a 28-year-old, then why would you pick someone who's 23 or 24? So if your age group is up to 30, then your pool will be from 25 to 30, because they come with the experience, they come with the knowledge. Then you won't pick somebody who is much younger, whether it is to direct your play you've written or, to operate lights. You'll pick a 27-year-old who has 7 years experience in operating lights.
So if I don't know whether this makes sense, but at 18 to 20 years old, I'll give you a background. So I was trying to learn flute.
Right.
And it was under a proper Guru Shishya Parampara style. And he said, my Guru said that first 5 years at least don't even speak that you're learning. Right? Because you're just listening and you're digesting, you're consuming. Yeah. And typically in the music space at least, where there is Guru Shishya Parampara, a disciple or a learner takes around 20-25 years to just master that art, and then when the guru says go ahead, right? So that is where I come from as an thought process wise. So I would like to ask, in then theatre also with Dubey sir and other people, I think it would have been a similar tradition. Now with Thespo, what are you guys tapping into when it comes to new talent, like young talent?
So just two things with regards to Guru Shishya Parampara. A, it's a structured form of instruction.
Okay.
With the theatre, particularly in the 1999, there was no structured form of instruction. There was only NSD.
No,
right?
but
there was no way that you could go and learn about the theatre in a structured way. In 1999, that was the scenario. Right.
Before that, like I'm slightly illiterate, but with Tendulkar or Alkazi type of people, there would be having.
But
disciples,
there was still no structured program, right, where you could go and apprentice. So that's the first thing. The second thing, and the more interesting thing, is unlike the classical arts, the theatre arts are always evolving. Right? The classical art is God played it like this, you must play it like that. Your whole journey is how do you play it like God, right? Or how do you dance like that? Or there is a certain code that has been established. The performing arts and the theatre arts particularly evolve based on who the new writers are, where the new ideas come from, what the new styles. I mean, I used to have a conversation with people about styles of acting. The acting styles have changed over the years. And if you look at what's happening on stage right now, earlier on it used to be very, very slightly melodramatic, right? Because you were trying to reach 800 people. Then as the venues changed, the styles changed. Then as television and film came in, things changed on stage. The theatre experience kept changing to be more adaptive to the scenario it is. So then it shifted into this storyteller kind of mode. Like where you're not only just playing the character, you're also telling the story of the character. Then I remember having a conversation with someone. We went and saw some spoken word poetry. And I remember having a conversation saying, we're doomed. Because spoken word is so true because the person who's written it is telling the story. Yeah, telling a deep, dark thing about themselves. So how do you beat that for truth? Now, if you look at a lot of the theatre that's happening, they're finding different ways to find truth. Sometimes it's stylized, right, through movement. Like right now in theatre in Bombay, movement has a huge role to play. We're working on a new show right now called Every Brilliant Thing. And literally, it's a reaction, in a sense, to spoken word because the actor is talking to every single audience member. Not this abstract concept of an audience. How I'm looking at the audience and talking. No, he's actually having conversations with each member of the audience. Looking them in the eye and talking to them, that person sitting there. So now that is a different style to what was happening maybe 10 or 15 years ago. I mean, when I was rehearsing this show, I had to change everything that I ever thought about the theatre. So theatre evolves constantly. Styles evolve. Earlier on, if you were doing a Western play, you had to fool the audience that you were Western. Today, it's the other way around. You don't fool the audience. You tell the audience, I'm not Western, but I'm an Indian person telling a Western story for a reason. Things have shifted in that way.
So with Thespo, you are trying to tap into this new thing?
So I think Thespo, with theatre, anyway, I think the new is always something that shouldn't be pushed aside. The new is how you evolve. It's a constantly evolving thing. What was tending to happen with young people was either they were not being given enough opportunity, right? I mean, we were literally in a scenario. I remember we used to go and watch plays and, the audience numbers were dwindling because the audience people were actually dying. They were too old. 60, 70-year-old people were your average audience age. For theatre, it was ridiculous. And I'm not saying it was anyone's fault. It was just that's what had happened. The moment you started getting young people involved, younger stories started coming out. Younger stories means it's now more attractive to a younger audience. So if you look today at if you sit in a Prithvi Theatre or a Cuckoo Club or whatever, and you look at your demographic of the audience, it's so much younger. It's now like, 28 to 35. It's so much younger than it used to be. And that's because suddenly newer stories are coming out. There was a play called Bansuri that was written by Divya Jagdale. And it was the first play in really long where the protagonist was in her 20s. Right? And Sunil Shanbag directed it, and it happened on as part of Writer's Block 1. But otherwise, everyone else was writing for 40-year-olds. The protagonists were all 40 or 50 or, life experienced kind of people. This was the first one. But a young girl who's supposed to get arranged marriage, she hears a Bansuri. And that's the voice of her conscience and the fact that she doesn't want. Suddenly, it changed. Suddenly, people went, yeah. And the moment there were younger people doing work, younger people with more experience doing theatre and all, it meant that writers were also writing for actors who they knew. So you're writing better parts and more complicated parts because you think these people have the chops to do it. And that's how a theatre culture evolves. Like I said, it's a living, breathing thing, right? The fact that if no one young is doing it, then no one will write about the young because no young people are coming to watch. The moment there's a young person doing something, right, the writer thinks, yeah, that guy can do it. If I write this story and there's a young director who understands what I'm talking about, who will be able to convert it. The moment that happens, a young audience member takes notice saying, hey, this is about me. And that's how the ecosystem changes. So today, the amazing thing about Thespo is it started as a very rebel outside movement. Young people were basically, if you were part of a theatre group, you were moving furniture for 5 years, like what you're saying. It was this apprenticeship. You were moving furniture, you were bringing chai, you were doing all of that. You wouldn't never even dream of being on stage, right? Never even dream of being the third spear carrier. That was the 30-year-old. You know what I mean? And suddenly, if you look across Bombay, but also across India, the engine room of all theatre companies is actually people under the age of 25. The engine room, the guys who are actually doing all the work. Yes, the patriarch or the main director, or male or female, head will be this thing. But the guys who are really on the ground doing the work, getting the shows, pushing, running these companies are all young. And that's a big difference from what it used to be. Huge difference. And I'm not saying Thespo is responsible for that. I think Thespo is just part of this larger thing that happened. I mean, people like Ramu Ramanathan were going into colleges and doing work at the same time. Atul Kumar had gone and done something at National College for like 6 months. And all those actors have then jumped into the theatre and done really serious kind of stuff. So a lot of people were doing a lot of similar things around the
simultaneously.
Around the same time. The only consistent thing that has endured has probably been Thespo, because those were all projects that happened. But there was a match that was clearly a lot of people were thinking in the same way.
Also, I think what was happening with the initiatives that Ramu and Atul and all were doing is that they were going into colleges and doing, which meant you needed some kind of institutional support, somebody in the institution who believed that this was an important part of a young person's education to be part of the theatre or performing arts. Because Thespo placed itself very much outside the college scenario. Like our participants didn't have to belong to any college. A play didn't have to be done by a group of students all belonging to the same college. We had no such college associated structure within the festival when we started. So I think that is also why it managed to endure. So if a college principal changes or some faculty member changes, an activity can be stopped. But because it was outside the college circuit, no matter who were running the institutions or who were the students in those institutions, every year we kept getting a new and fresh batch of young artists, young theatre artists who wanted to do theatre. And I think that is also why it has managed to endure beyond a flash in the pan activity at some point.
Yeah, I remember. I have a follow-up question on that as well, because we were from Ruia, but the capacity in which we performed at Thespo was not really part of Ruia. It was an independent group of people. Yeah. So, Toral, this particular question is for you. I mean, since you have worked in multiple capacities, and this is my personal quest also, because even I don't think that, like, with the new trend of things happening, there's generally a spike and then it dies down, right? So I think that maybe Audiogyan shouldn't be a spike as well. So what are the few reasons which has kept Thespo for 20 years going strong? I mean, this would be my personal question also.
Right. So something that I noticed that you're doing with Audiogyan, and I think it is something similar that worked with Thespo, was the regularity with which something is being done, so that people then come to expect it, right? So after the first 4-5 years, we have so many people who would come to us and say that, if it's December, we are looking forward to the Thespo festival, because it became a thing in everyone's calendar. And I think that's also something that you've tried to do, that, come rain or shine, you have every Wednesday one podcast that will be published, no matter what. So being regular and consistent, I think has played a big part.
No, but isn't
also,
that
what happens is that then people can rely on it. So if they are working on a new play, they know that there is the Thespo Festival in December, we can audition for it. So let's work hard, let's put together a play. So every time a young group is trying to do an activity, so they know that, okay, they can do it for the college festivals, they can also do it for Thespo, and so on and so forth. So it was unfortunately, like Quasar said, we started as a rebel thing, but it has become institutionalized because we've made sure that we were always there through all the challenges that Thespo has faced over the years, where, we've come scarily close to not being able to have yet another festival this year. The fact that it endured and it kept going has made people confident that they can depend on it. And I think that has been a huge factor in why Thespo has endured over 20 years. Mm-hmm. Secondly, it's the people. It's really the young people who have believed in the festival, because after the first few years, we were all facing a huge degree of like fatigue and lack of inspiration to keep going. But it was young theatre practitioners who were like, no way, Thespo is important, and we'll come and run Thespo, and we'll participate, and we'll do it in other cities. And so we've had young people still who are volunteering in some part of India who might have never even come and watched a single play at the Thespo festival, but they believe that Thespo is important for young theatre practitioners. They believe that this is a platform where young people can showcase their work, can get the training that they need. And it is really that belief from the youth theatre community which also kept it going. And I mean, finally, it is also, I think, the senior theatre community, without which it would not have endured. The amount of support Thespo got when we were only 2021, the kind of support we got from the professional theatre community, the ones who had been around for 20, 25, 30 years. We could just pick up the phone and, ask for help, and they were all there. Whether it is, a Sunil Shanbag or a Ramu or Shanta Gokhale or, it was an incredible pool that we could tap into. So I think it was also their belief in what we were doing that kept us going for quite a while there.
Mm-hmm. But again, these will be slightly external forces, right? Because once you put it out, then you are also accountable, you are responsible, and then people are looking up to you. So you continue. So that's like a more external side. What is the intrinsic drive apart from being 25 years, dikhate hai kuch, rebel hai? Obviously, it must have matured over time, right?
I think one of the things is every few years or so, we're constantly looking at what is the need. I mean, we've had real conversations about, is there a need for Thespo? Like I said, now every theatre company is, people have under 25. Is there still a need for Thespo? And what has always come back, and I think that's part of the evolution of what it is that, okay, there's this aspect now, this need is met. So what is the next aspect of need we have to follow? Which is why we started as a showcase, which is only the festival. Then training happened, right? So now suddenly workshops happen throughout the year, right? Then we moved from just being a showcase to also helping people develop into theatre companies. So now we have a program which is every month we curate 2 days at Prithvi, where the play is no longer just a play for the festival. Like when you just do a play for at college level, the play exists for that festival and then disappears.
Right.
But now, because you're being programmed later, the play exists. Therefore, you have to form a group to make the play happen, which is why younger groups are now forming. And then one of the things recently recently means our last big evolution has been the fact that we've realized that all of us, when we've had exposure to different styles, both in Bombay, outside of Bombay, or even internationally, we're already 30, 35 years old. It's quite late in your own career to be exposed to these things. So one of the things that we've tried to start doing is collaborations, where we're trying to, it's like we got this Italian director who came and worked with 10 young performers here, creating a site specific, or 17 young performers here, creating a site specific piece all through the bylanes of Juhu, right? Where the audience member is only one. So at any given point, there's only one audience member. Then we worked with a Brazilian director who created something which was it was a performance about freedom of expression, but it was also more like an installation. Now, these are new and fascinating ideas that are happening elsewhere in the world, elsewhere in the country, elsewhere. As a young person here, it's a great time to be exposed to them, right? So that's become the next need. Like, why are we waiting for to already be old and jaded before you get exposed to new ideas? It's not going to make any impact on you. So that's been the next kind of evolution. And one of the larger things we're discovering in a world that is becoming increasingly divided, right, in terms of how you think, who you are, what's happening, is the fact that we are all part of a much larger community. We're part, and I think Thespo now is striving to help foster and nurture and create a global community of young theatre enthusiasts, right, around the world, around the country, around anywhere. So we've had volunteers who've come from Sri Lanka, we've had people who've come from Canada, and just by interacting and merging and having that conversation, you start understanding differences and start understanding similarities, and you realize that borders, religious lines, all these artifices don't really matter. If you love the art, then that's what really matters. So again, that's something that we're also doing. So we've literally gone from showcasing to training to celebrating, because we do a award ceremony and lifetime achievement award, to collaborations, to community building. And now Thespo encompasses all these things. And we constantly trying to evolve. So any activities we do, we try and figure out what is the need that among these 5 things that we are trying to solve. What is the gap that we're always trying to fill? And like she said, the gap is not always identified by us. We're old and tired, honestly. Right? When we turned 10, we actually had a real serious conversation about, yaar, band karte hain. Bahut ho gaya, 10 saal se yahi kar rahe hain.
And it seemed like a nice number, like you've
10.
done 10th, I suppose. It's a nice
because none of us thought.
number.
I remember sitting on the steps of Prithvi going, I can't believe we're 10 years old. Like, I cannot believe that. Not in my wildest dreams did I think we do. And at that point, when we seriously had this conversation, there was a young girl called Vidisha who turned to us and went, what the hell are you people saying? And so for the next 3 years, she drove it. She was 17 or 18 at the time, and she drove it. And because she was so passionate about it, it kick-fired our engines again. And in fact, what has happened since that point till Thespo 20, that level, like right now I look at what Thespo is and I'm going, this is not what we started out with. This is insanely huge. Last year we had 200 and something plays from 26 different cities across the country in 19 languages that had registered for to do a play. It's unreal. I'm sitting there going, I don't understand this. Right?
And it's not just the groups of people who are putting up plays, who want to be showcased and get on stage. It's also individuals. So in the last 3-4 years, we have volunteers who come down to work at the festival from 10 to 13 different parts of the country. They've all taken leave from their colleges, from their jobs, from wherever they are. They come to Bombay, they figure it out on their own, their travel, their stay, because they just want to be part of a festival, a community that is, bigger than whichever city they come from. And they're individuals. They don't have a play. They are not going to get on stage. They are not going to be up for any glory or fame or any of that. But it's incredible that, you have young people traveling from all over India and Sri Lanka who are coming just to volunteer and to be part of something that's large and wonderful and creative. So really it's them who have, like, after Thespo 10, it's really these guys who have kept the festival going.
Wow, that's really inspiring. So yeah, I was wondering to keep this as a two-part series. So I'll end with two last questions with respect to Thespo, and then we'll have a second part which is about more youth theatre in Mumbai. So this is slightly a cliche question, but what would be the 2018 or 19 top 5 plays one should watch which have emerged out of Thespo? I mean, this is given by Ramu sir. He has his style of making it much more contemporary and like take away kuch chahiye. So I think that's where he's coming from.
This is top 5 across the 20 years?
Yeah.
Wow, I think we're going to have our
or
own
maybe
lists.
2000, which are maybe running or are in production or will hit theaters or will be seen.
So a couple of plays which I don't think will be seen, but I wish they could be. One is a play called Butter and Mashed Bananas, and this was written by Ajay Krishnan, and they performed this play in Thespo 7, which is in 2005. It's a play about freedom of expression, and unfortunately the play is more relevant today, I think, than it was all those years ago. It is an incredibly creative way to make us think about freedom of expression. It's not your conventional plot or structure in acts and scenes, and you have fixed characters. It is funny, it is musical, it is whimsical. It has these three guys, who at different points were playing like mother, father and child, as well as social commentators and so many other wonderful things. And that is one of, also because it's a play which you cannot read it, you cannot consume it in any other form. It won't make for a good short film, it won't make for a music video. It has to be seen as a play because it was written to be performed in a certain way. For me, that is one of the top 5 of Thespo in 20 years. Another one which was, I think, important for Thespo and therefore is close to my heart is a play called Dalan. It was the first Natak company play that happened at Thespo in Thespo 10. And it was our first year at Prithvi Theatre. Till then we had been doing the festival in Sophia College and in NCPA, and Thespo 10 was the first time we were doing the festival at Prithvi Theatre. And Dalan was the first day of the festival. They were opening the festival. So we were doing this Marathi play at Prithvi Theatre done by a group in Pune.
This is by Nipun, right?
Nipun's group, yeah. And we just sent out messages to, everyone we know, just saying, it's the opening of the festival. We are in the suburbs, so we are at Prithvi. Please come. And we didn't tell anyone that the play is actually in Marathi. So all these people turned up excited because they were there for Thespo and they wanted to see, what's the new and exciting things that young people are doing. And they get there and they realize it's a Marathi play and they are all really skeptical. But when they walk out of the theatre, their faces were just beaming. It had been this wonderful, exhilarating experience of a musical Marathi play. The talent on display was just phenomenal. I mean, they had a huge cast, but like every single actor was like amazing. The whole ensemble it worked really well. The singing was great. The writing was hilarious. And it didn't matter that it was in Marathi. It didn't matter that, it was a musical or not a musical. Everyone got the play. Nobody had come there to watch a Marathi, not nobody, but a lot of them had not come there expecting a Marathi play. They went in skeptical and they came out just beaming. And that for me was also a very important moment for Thespo. To be able to tell audiences that when theatre is done right and it is done well, like your languages don't matter, it's also a play that I really enjoyed myself watching. So I have gone and watched it a number of times after that. Of course, the group is still doing the show. They are no longer that young. The play is about a bunch of school kids, and now you have these, 30, 35-year-old men playing school kids, and they have beards and mustaches, which they hide with like monkey caps and shawls, because everyone is in some film somewhere and continuity hai, I can't shave and I can't do that. And, I mean, their lives have moved on, but I think that this play has also been an important point in the journey of Natak Company, and I think they also have quite an emotional attachment to it because they're still running it. That's two shows I can think of. Another play that happened was a play called The Trial, which was directed by Sherzad Kaikobad. It was a play done by students from Jai Hind College, as in they were all in Jai Hind College and they had performed it for their college as well. And it was one of those plays that really made you go like, this is why. I mean, it justified all the work that goes into putting up Thespo. It was clean, clear, crisp direction. It's based on Franz Kafka's The Trial, and again, unfortunately, still very relevant. But the style of direction that Sherzad chose, it was unbelievable that a college student had such an evolved and thought through vision for the story that she was telling. And it's amazing because she did go on to graduate from NSD and, she went on to do other work. But at that point, you could see that here was somebody who was very young, who didn't have training, who didn't have exposure, but who already had that kind of vision. So that's again one of those memorable nights from watching plays at Thespo that I have. Two more. Quasar, do you want to?
Kabaddi.
That's on your list?
Kabaddi is on my list. Kabaddi Uncut was a piece written by Siddesh Porkar. Marathi play, again Natak Company. But what was very, very interesting about it was the staging of it. So the story is relatively simple. It's about a young girl who is a garbage collector, lives in this garbage dump, finds a video camera lying around, and then starts shooting people around the garbage dump. Turns out the camera belongs to documentary film crew who've left it behind, and they've lodged a police complaint. And then the director of the film realizes that what she's captured is way better and more truthful than any footage that they've captured. But the staging of it, so it was just pure theatre. I mean, Suraj Parasnas, who's the director's, I can't say slowly becoming, but I really love his style of directing stuff. He's able to to transcend the stage and do stuff that is very, very interesting. He did that in another play called Patient. And his company, which is Theatron, they've done a play called Bhavar, which again, just that last sequence in Bhavar is unreal. But Kabaddi Uncut was very tight writing, wonderfully performed. I mean, Rucha Apte, who plays the lead, was fantastic. A play in Marathi, so not a language that I follow that well. But the staging of it was exquisite. I mean, they'd put a full garbage dump out on the Prithvi stage. I mean, you walk in and there were mountains, 10 and 12 feet high.
Wow.
Of garbage and, a big cement pipe in the center and the way it was staged. I mean, when they were going to view the footage, I expected, अच्छा अभी screen पे आएगा ये footage जो उन्होंने shoot किया था. And they just circumvented that completely. It was just genius what they did. They basically used a projector that they projected on a live actor. So the actor was now lit in just a projection which had the record symbol on the top right. Right, or had the play pause kind of, but
wow.
They were actually live. And then when the camera, when it was being shot, changes axis, that whole human being changes axis, and the set would change axis and stuff. So really remarkable way of staging it. Low tech, so effective. And that's one of the things about the plays at Thespo. I mean, it usually is my worst week in the year because 90% of the time I'm sitting there saying, why didn't I think of that? I watch it with incredible jealousy. As a theatre director myself, I'm going, damn it. Trial was like that. I was sitting there and I remember everyone turned to me and went, Q, you wish you directed it. And I was like, yeah. Just, I cannot believe sometimes the amazing ideas, and this is what I mean by evolution, right? Like sometimes we're jaded by things, and the fact that someone is fresh and coming in, has a new perspective, a new style of doing something, just completely blows the mind. So now as someone who's been a director for a number of years, I look at this work and I hit myself every time. Why don't I think of that? That's genius. And you have to stand up and applaud when it's there. So yeah, Kabaddi is definitely one that I'd put there. The other one, way back, and he keeps threatening to bring it back, but never has, is a play called Pigs on the Wing. It's a seminal piece of work because it's very rare that you get a new piece of writing that A, is 2.5 hours long.
Oh wow. Achha.
B, it holds for 2.5 hours. And the construct is really simple, but it goes down a wonderfully dark path and the writing is really, really beautiful. It was written by Apurva Kale, directed by Akarsh Khurana. And it basically is about a guy who is disillusioned with the world and his life and his job and sends a suicide note to his two best friends, or one comes breaks down the door in panic saying, are you okay? The girl turns up thinking it's a fun invite to his birthday party, and then it's literally them talking him out of this funk and this zone. Very existential, very, very dark in parts and hilarious in parts. I mean, really, really very tightly beautiful piece of theatre. And Akarsh has threatened to do every so often. We keep nagging him and he's like, yeah, I'll bring it back, but he hasn't yet, and we're hoping that it does have a life. It was also an incredibly complete piece of theatre. I mean, it was big. It had all the joys that full length theatre has, subplots. You go down a zone and it doesn't work out, and you come back, and this whole upheaval of stuff, high emotion.
And also because it was written by a young guy, it was about things that young people were struggling with. So your protagonist wasn't a 40-year-old man who's disillusioned and wants to take his own life. It is a 21-year-old guy, who is struggling to deal with whatever life has thrown at him. And also it is one of those turning points, because it was where then all the AK Various journey began. Like just as Dadan for us was when all the Natak company stuff then became a big thing. Pigs on the Wing, which happened way back in 2002, was when then the AK Various journey began. And I mean, everyone knows Akash has been incredibly prolific and still continues to be. And we've had wonderful actors from his group who have done plays at Thespo, and people who've done Thespo who've gone on to do a lot of theatre with AK Various. So yeah, I think that is actually quite a nice top 5, unless you want to add any others.
No, I mean, the only interesting thing about it, and there have been some fantastic other plays. I mean, My Funny Valentine, and there have been some incredible work. But what has always been remarkable is that most of the work that has been newly written tends to have the most passion behind its staging as well. So it's not that we haven't had, like Trial, for example, is a Steven Berkoff version of Franz Kafka's novel in terms of text. Fantastic. But if you look across the 20 years of Thespo, most of the really standout plays have also been written by people under the age of 25, and they've really pushed the envelope in trying to make that work that much more interesting. So it's almost like text and production sit one on top, interweave, which has been really remarkable. You'd always think that if I find existing text, it's just easier to stage that because there's less to worry about. It's an existing strong text, and there have been some like that, Norway Today and things like that. But somehow the passion of trying to tell your own story, if you're trying to look at a trend, then that is the trend. The passion of trying to tell your own story always is out. Like those productions have been very, very strong.
Wow. I'm going to write a blog post on these like top 5 ones. Cool. To conclude this particular episode, I want to ask you, like, what's the long-term vision of Thespo? I mean, I completely get that the underlying principle now would be constantly asking yourself the need, right? But other than that, any thoughts on where is it going to head? Or at least on what parameters you would like to explore or evolve it into?
I think currently right now our obsession is how do we connect the world a little bit? How do we really nurture a global community of young theatre enthusiasts? I think that's a larger vision kind of thing. We've started in some way, and it's still nascent, but we are seeing the rewards of people across cultures connecting and working together.
Also, the kind of penetration we now have within our own country is not something that we thought we would get to, because like he was saying, we had registrations from 26 different cities and towns from across the country. So the growth is in very small increments. So yes, the really long-term goal is to be able to achieve that at a global level, where you have young people connecting with other young people, across the oceans and continents kind of thing. It's really interesting that you asked this because, like we mentioned earlier, we didn't know where we were going to be in 10 years' time or 20 years' time. And it still is very difficult for us to articulate today where will Thespo be in 10 years. And I think that has been one of our strengths, that we didn't really have a very fixed goal in mind, or a 5-year plan or 10-year plan. And then we only looked at how do we achieve that. The fact that the young leaders who are now running Thespo, the movement, and all the associated activities, that the need, the relevance, what we do next, it keeps coming from them. And every year we have new leadership that's leading the movement. We have a team of 3 to 4 young people who are under 25, who are then, the custodians of the movement, and they run it for a whole year and hand it over to a new team. And they are the ones who are determining the path that Thespo is taking. So while, yes, there is the, ultimate goal that what we started as something small in Bombay is now much larger, and it has truly become pan-Indian, and we still continue to go to new towns and cities in India, that is the kind of community that we can build globally. So, yeah, I mean, that's where it will be. 10 years.
The idea, I think, where Thespo exists now is Thespo is about serving youth theatre, and youth theatre is about serving all theatre. And I think that line still remains and needs to keep remaining, and needs to keep getting feedback across that line. What is it that the world of theatre needs? What of that can youth theatre contribute, and what of that can Thespo help make happen? And I think that's kind of the relationship that Thespo is within the larger ecosystem of theatre. It's not an end in itself. It's a tool. And as long as people are doing theatre and being excited about it and watching, and exciting things are coming out of it, that's the zone where I think it will stay.
One of the reasons why you guys have been so inspirational maybe is like philosophically कर्म करते रहो, like फल की इच्छा मत करो, let's see where it goes. So same thought process I'm keeping with Audiogyan, let's see where it goes. Cool. I think on this note we'll conclude this episode, and I would like to have you guys again to discuss youth theatre, which I've come up with again few questions. And I mean on a that note, 2019 ke liye, how does it begin? Registrations, and if you need volunteers, obviously there's not required, but yeah, a lot of people who would be listening for the first time want to get into it. How?
Volunteers are always required.
No, as in like demand and supply.
The engine going. So as far as 2019 goes, a lot of the Thespo activities are already in full swing. So the year started with a bunch of acting workshops across the country called Natya Kala workshops, which we do in partnership with DSM. So that was in the first part of the year. We've got the new team in place. The outreach to the different cities is happening. So anyone listening out there from any part of the country, if you're under 25 and interested in doing theatre, just drop in a line to theatre@thespo.org, and registrations will also open now. Once you write in to us, we will share with you the registration form, and you can register your play and screen it to be part of the festival this December.
Wow. Cool. Thank you for giving us your time, and yeah, it was lovely talking to you.
Thank you
For having us.
Yeah.
And that's it from today's Gyan session. Catch us on iTunes, Saavn, Stitcher, or any podcasting app you use. Do rate us on iTunes and follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Stay tuned for more Gyan on Audiogyan.com. Till then, bye.
At Speedway, we've always been here to get you what you need when you need it. We're committed to keeping our stores open, clean, and safe, so you can stay fueled and refreshed all summer long. We've got cold drinks for hot days and frozen drinks for even hotter ones, plus energy boosts, quick bites, and pick-me-ups. We're always on your way, and we're always here for you. So no matter what you need, when you stop by, we'll be ready. Now, any Speedy Freeze up to mighty size is just 99 cents.